What's up, 38 fam? Today, we're talking camera gear. So aside from the obvious bike questions that I get a ton of questions on a regular basis asking me about what kind of gear I use and what I use to edit my videos and so on and so forth. So I think it's time to start sharing some of that info with you guys, and today we're starting with camera gear. But before we get into all this crazy equipment, I want to talk a little bit about why this matters. I have seen a ton of people say, and even had people say it to me, that the gear doesn't matter, it's the content, it's the story. And they're about 50% full of shit. Now, of course, the content and the story are number one. I will agree with that. But the gear serves that story and your ability to tell it. It allows you to show things in ways that you wouldn't normally see. It makes it much more appealing to the eyes and ears of your audience and essentially turns the story that you're trying to tell into a piece of art. Not to mention that it's 2017 and bad video is simply unacceptable. Nobody is gonna wanna watch some pixelated, shaky camera guy with terrible audio week in and week out on their YouTube channel. And if one of those people is watching this right now and you think otherwise, good luck to you. But anyways, let's get into the gear that I use to tell my story. Now, when I started my channel, I had nothing but a GoPro and this little guy. This is a Canon S120. They don't make this camera anymore, but it was super cheap. It was like 250 bucks or something like that. And actually the whole first year and a half or so of my channel, up until Halloween of 2016, every single video was shot on this thing. But when I get into something, I go all out. There's no half-assing around here. And I very quickly outgrew the capabilities of this camera and knew that I had to get something else. I am all about progression and stepping my game up, and after I figured out the type of videos that I wanted to make and had a little bit of practice under my belt, I have meticulously planned out the whole gear setup that I'm about to show you right now. And it all started with the Panasonic GH4. This camera I obsessed about for almost a year before I got it. I learned every possible thing that I could about it because it was one of the first small compact DSLRs to be aimed specifically for video over photo. And after I got it, that's when you guys saw that crazy step up in video quality around here. It shoots in 4K, so all that extra resolution allows me to do a lot of the cool effects that you guys see on here that makes it look like I might have a cameraman sometimes when I actually don't. Because all that extra resolution allows me to crop in like this, or zoom it back out, or do some fake slider shots going this way, or go this way. All that kind of stuff is super fun, obviously, and really adds to the videos. And it also will shoot up to 96 frames a second in 1080 for those super buttery slow-mo shots that you guys see around here pretty often, because I love using them. All my B-roll is pretty much shot in that. I'm obsessed with slow motion. It also has the ability to shoot in a log style profile, which is super flat, which I'll show you now. So as you can see, everything looks super washed out and blech looking, but what this is doing is giving me way more dynamic range and more information to work with for color grading it in post, so I can make it look like this, or this, or this, and I don't lose any video quality. So I like having that because it just gives me way more flexibility in editing and allows me to have a little more choices when I deliver the final product of these things. What else can I say about this? It's got a flippy monitor, that helps. Oh, the battery life. That little camera that I started with, I was lucky to maybe get 35, 40 minutes out of a battery. This thing gets anywhere between 4 and 5 hours when I've got the settings maxed out on it, which is pretty amazing. And of course, this thing does all the photo stuff too, and has this little quick menu that I can access my different settings super fast on the fly. And can't say enough good things about this camera. This is the backbone of my operation, and I in fact liked it so much that I got a second one not too long ago, which is what's filming this right now. But that camera would be pretty useless without some lenses. Now I have a few different lenses for this camera, but I would say this one right here is my absolute favorite by a long shot. This is the Lumix 12 to 35mm by Panasonic, and for micro four thirds cameras like the one I use, I would say this is the best all-around lens you could possibly get for it. You can see it's got a decently usable zoom range. This would be the equivalent to a 24 to 70mm on a full-frame camera like a Canon. This is the lens that I shoot all my B-roll footage with, probably 80% of the riding footage with, and at 12mm you can actually still vlog with this thing relatively well, so this by far is the all-around lens, and this is the one lens that I started with and got the job done for quite a while. Then I picked up this guy. This is the Olympus 7-14 f2.8 Pro, and this is a huge wide angle lens. So this is the lens that I typically use for the selfie style vlogger thing because, like I said, it's a wide angle, so it can pick up way more of the background around me, more of my body, and you can kind of see a little more of what I'm doing when I'm holding the camera out in front of me. And it's also super good for picking up, you know, way more landscape stuff, or, you know, if you're crammed in a small space and want to kind of show a little more about what's going on, this is the lens that I use for that. I also have a Lumix 25mm 1.7, which I can't show you because it's filming this video right now, but it was a super cheap lens and it's pretty good for filming stuff like this and super awesome for portrait photography. So that's pretty much the only time I cracked that one out. Another thing that you can't see on camera right now because it's sitting right above my head on a boom right now is the microphone that I use to shoot this stuff, which is the Rode VideoMic Pro. Actually, maybe I can show it to you. So here you go, this is the Rode VideoMic Pro. This is typically mounted on top of my camera at all times, but right now we're shooting with a boom so that we can get some nice crispy audio for this thing. So now that we got that covered, I guess let's move on to the on-bike camera stuff. So everybody knows what these are. These are GoPros. I honestly hate using GoPros. I use them the least amount possible because I think they just look like ass, but in a lot of situations, I need these things. So for the main camera while I'm on the bike, this is the old Hero 4 Black Edition. Probably gonna rock this thing till it dies because it does everything it needs to. It shoots 4K, it shoots high frame rate 1080. It has the Pro Tune mode, which is similar to the flat profile that I showed you earlier on my good camera, so I can match the footage. And yeah, and this is the secondary camera while I'm on the bike. This is the Hero 4 Session, and I really actually like using this one. It's super small, super compact, super easy to use, does exactly what it needs to do. Shoots high frame rate 1080, shoots that same flat profile, and I can actually put this thing in all kinds of cool spots because it's so small and it's super versatile to mount. So usually you'll see it mounted on the handlebars looking towards me, but there's been other times where I put this thing in all kinds of crazy spots on the bike. Stuck it on the fork leg before, on the swing arm, on the shock, all kinds of different spots, and pretty much anywhere I can stick a mount or one of those little clamps, this thing will go there and it'll nail the shot every time. So definitely like this little guy. And probably one of the most asked questions on motovlogging channels when it comes to camera gear is the audio while you're on the bike. And mine is as straightforward as it gets. My audio is coming from this Sena 20S communicator and being sent into the GoPro through this Sena backpack that goes on the GoPro via Bluetooth. The mic in there is super crisp. It cancels out all the wind noise pretty much. The only downside to it is that it cancels out a lot of the bike noise too, which isn't good. So thankfully I run this secondary camera on there and this thing gets super great audio for some reason. So I'll usually overlay a little bit of that bike sound on top of that audio to kind of give it a more, I don't know, natural feeling sound, and that's it. All right, what other goodies can I show you? All right, camera supports and stabilization. Now some of this stuff is actually pretty important because without it, your shaky cam, Sally, and your stuff looks terrible. Things like tripods and all that are pretty essential when it comes to making any kind of YouTube videos or just any kind of videos in general. And then there's stuff that you don't exactly need, but it's just really cool to have and really adds to that stuff. So I've got both of those things coming out at you right now. First, this War of the Worlds looking thing, the Joby Gorillapod. So anybody that's familiar with vlogging has seen one of these on somebody's channel before because this is what the camera gets mounted on while we're walking around talking to ourselves like weirdos. So other than the camera itself, this is definitely the most used piece of gear in my bag because it is extremely versatile. Obviously, I use it to hold the camera out in front of me while I'm talking. It keeps the camera way more stable than just holding it in your hand. It's also a tripod, so that's cool. And these legs fully articulate, so you can wrap them around stuff. You can put the camera in all kinds of really weird spots. And this is the top dog model that they make. I forget what it's called, but the cups are aluminum on it, so it means they won't wear out. I did have the one below this one for a little while before, and it's all plastic, and that thing lasted maybe a month or two. So definitely worth the extra money to upgrade to this one. And it also has a removable ball head on it, so I can stick this little ball head on other tripods and stuff, and I can tilt the camera in all kinds of weird directions. And it's also fluid dampened too, so if you do want to do like pan shots with it, it's extremely smooth. Next we got the big dog tripod. This is too big to even put on the table. There we go. So this is actually two separate pieces. We've got the tripod legs themselves, and this is the Manfrotto M10 T something 055. Aluminum tripod, extends stupidly high. When this tripod's fully extended, it's taller than I am, so that's pretty cool. It's built to take a shit kicking, because I have dropped this thing on the highway so many times. And then the second part is the head itself, and this is the Manfrotto 502 video head. And this thing is built super tough. It's also hydraulically dampened, pan and tilt on it, and it's also fully adjustable too, so you can adjust just how much resistance you're getting out of it, so you can get those real buttery shots dialed in, and I use that a lot around here. And this thing, this is super cool. So this here is the Cinovate Doozy 4 slider, and this thing I am so in love with. I use it every possible chance that I can get. This thing is built amazing. It is full bill aluminum. It's got carbon fiber rods. It's got these adjustable legs on it so you can set it up in all kinds of weird uneven terrain. Of course, it's got mounts on the bottom to mount it to a tripod and all that, but the coolest part about this slider is the sled itself. So there's a couple different kinds of manual sliders out there. There's the ones that have just the sled on a track that's usually just bearings or some wheels on it or something, and then there's other ones that have a flywheel on them which helps smooth out the movement. Now I used to have one of those cheap sliders before that had nothing on it, just a sled on a track, and I've got super shaky hands, so my slides looked terrible, and I ended up pretty much never using that footage in anything because they looked so bad. So I decided I need to get a better slider that's got a flywheel on it. Now most sliders with flywheels on them, they have a big weighted flywheel hanging off the side, and they've got a belt drive system kind of attaching that whole thing, and it's this whole operation, and you have to set it all up, and it's super annoying, and that's what makes this slider super cool. This one, the flywheel is built right into the sled. So the centrifugal force this big flywheel spinning under here will actually completely smooth out all your shaky hand movements in your slides and make them super buttery smooth every single time. And the centrifugal force is actually powerful enough that you don't even have to touch it. It'll keep going on its own. So that's super awesome. Love using this thing. It's something that I use typically for only my B-roll footage on this channel, but it's also something that I use outside of this channel for paid shoots when I do stuff like that. So this thing's cool, I like it. And now for my favorite piece of gear. We got my gimbal. You know what, let's put a camera in it because right now it looks like it's just a metal stick. Boop. Oh, it's cool every time. So this is the Zion or Zune or something crane, I don't know how to pronounce it. And if you're not familiar with what a 3-axis gimbal is, it's got 3 different electric motors on it to completely smooth out your footage, so no matter what you're doing, this thing stays buttery smooth and looks like the camera's just flying at all times. I can't get enough of that. Look at it go. So the reason I went with this thing over one of the more popular gimbals like the DJI Ronin or Freefly Mobi is that this thing can be completely operated with one hand, and it makes it super convenient because you can actually vlog with this thing, which I have done before. You can mount your microphone off the side of it and walk around, even though it's kind of a heavy contraption to do that with. Definitely works and makes your vlog footage look amazing and next level compared to anything else out there. And if you want, you can also put on the dual handles and set it up just like one of those bigger units too. It also gets insane battery life. It lasts something like 12 hours. All the motors have full 360-degree axis, which means there's no worry about breaking any little stoppers off or pulling any wires out like some of the other gimbals, which is awesome for me because I break stuff a lot. And the last cool feature is that it's got this little joystick on here. You can control the pan, tilt, and roll axis, and you can also control it all wirelessly through your phone with a Bluetooth app. So while somebody else is running around with this thing, I can actually be controlling the camera, which is pretty cool. And other than that, I've just kind of modified out a little bit with these little mini tripod legs hanging off the bottom so I can actually set it down and make setup a lot easier. And I've got this little super clamp with a mini magic arm hanging off the side so that I can mount a microphone or a light or whatever off the side of it. All right, the final stuff. So since I kind of just mentioned lights, this is the Aputure AL-M9, and this is a permanent resident in my camera bag. This thing was super cheap too. It was like 40 bucks, but it's like half the size of an iPhone. The battery lasts forever in it, and this thing is crazy bright. Like by itself, when it's turned on full blast, it can light up an entire room. But the cool part about that is it's also dimmable, so you can actually dial it back so you can use it to interview people or look at it. Very valuable tool to have. Another thing that lives in my camera bag is this little Pelican case for memory cards. It's shockproof, waterproof. You should just have one. It makes sense. And then I keep some extra storage with me usually. This is a lacy, rugged 2 terabyte hard drive. I actually have multiple of these things because I keep all of my footage from every video that I make. And the final piece that hauls all this crap around is my camera bag. So this is the Lowepro ProTactic 450, and super awesome bag. It carries literally all of this gear. It's got some soft shell armor, so it keeps stuff protected. I've got it set up right now with dual tripod mounts on each side, so I can carry the Gorillapod and the big one on the other side. It's got these molly straps so that you can basically attach anything you want to the outside of the bag, so that's usually how I'll carry the slider on there. If I decided to bring it with me, I'll just throw some straps on it, hook it into those. And then the inside's got, of course, laptop sleeve, and it's set up right now for 2 cameras and all my little accessories and all that stuff, but it's an awesome bag. Without this thing, probably couldn't carry anywhere near as much of this stuff with me. And you're probably thinking this guy's insane for carrying that much stuff with him, especially on a motorcycle. But I like to be prepared to make the best possible video that I can whenever I go out and shoot something. So I look at it like the condom principle. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And other than that stuff, I edit all my videos and photos on a 15-inch MacBook Pro. Everybody knows what that is, so I don't need to show that. And I edit my videos in Final Cut Pro because I know someone's gonna ask that question. Maybe we'll get into doing some editing tricks videos. I don't know. Let me know down below. So that is all my gear that I use to make content on here and my other social media pages. Probably only my fellow camera nerds made it to the end of this one, but hey, I'll take that. So if you haven't already, throw a like on it, hit the subscribe button if you're not already part of the 38 fam, and we'll see you again in the next one.